Hello, my friends, and welcome to a new episode of Psicoactivo. To those who don't know my story in this field, I'm just going to tell it real quick so you know the context in which I am talking to you. Before I do that, I'm going to tell everybody who's been commenting on the videos, thank you. It's really nice to interact with all of you through there. It's still a relatively small community, but it's a lot of comments still. So I'm able to keep doing that for as long as I can. Um, and I'm gonna keep doing it because I learn a lot from the people who comment on the videos, and I feel really grateful that you guys are interacting with the stuff I'm saying and the stuff I'm presenting. I'm really happy for that. So thank you, thank you. And well, the way I started with this is basically the first time I realized that the concept of an ET or an extraterrestrial was real was in the 90s. I grew up in Mexico, in Guadalajara, and I learned the name Jaime Maussan pretty early in my life. And he was always the guy, the ufologist from Mexico. And there was this show called Otro Rollo. I've told this in some spaces and interviews called Otro Rollo, where Maussan took this case that he was doing at the time of Jonathan Reed, which is very famous in ufology. It was later debunked, and well, that's my first like real interaction with this information. And I remember watching that video and it freaked me the hell out. Like the video of Jonathan Reed breathing really heavily, pointing at the dead extraterrestrial on the floor, and the story behind it and all that. All that was going really well until they spoke about this bracelet. That's when I was like, that doesn't sound right. I remember thinking that when I was watching the show. And since then, well, that helped me in a little bit of X Files, which kind of scared me when I was a boy. We had it all dubbed in Spanish, so it's a very different vibe compared one show to another. It's not the same without the original language. I like to consume my stuff in its original language all the time. So yeah. That was my first contact. And then now that I was a journalist of doing sports for 12 years, did mostly soccer, but the last 2 to 3 years I've been doing all sports. And that's where I got my first chance to write about UFOs, which the topic changed for me in 2017, like everybody else's, I guess, with that New York Times article. But the moment that sold it to me was hearing Commander Fravor telling his story on Joe Rogan. That was, to this day, it's amazing to me because that's what I always hoped for, because I had seen the Dr. Greer documentaries before. It seemed a little far-fetched for me. A lot of claims that can be really proven. When I heard about the CE5, I immediately dismissed it, to be honest with you. But then this happened. I saw Fravor talking about it, and that changed my perspective quite a bit. Not necessarily about aliens existing, but about these objects and how pilots who are trained to fly describe the objects. And this close encounter that Fravor had is very specific, and it was really close. Like, he lived it. So that changed my perspective. And then I tried to revisit old things from Maussan or from Greer and Linda Moulton Howe and stuff I had seen when I was younger on History Channel and documentaries and all that stuff. And I realized that in 2017 too, this mummies things happened, and I noticed that everybody dismissed it immediately, and it was because Jaime Maussan was involved. And I find that really awful, to be honest with you, because I know that I got to interview him last year, late last year, and I got to talk to him. And you know how you realize what a person is like when you really talk to them, right? Like, we spoke for a little while, and he was honest about everything he told me. Nothing rang like it was mean spirited or something like that, you know? And when I interviewed him, I wasn't able to ask the questions that I wanted to ask. And I did ask a few of them, but most of them were questions that were oriented to appease or attract the masses, you know, because it was for a major company, a media company that likes is used to this clickbait culture, which is not that young anymore. And so I got to interview him. That did open a lot of doors for me because I interviewed him. And for that, I will always be grateful, though, because he gave me his time and he was nice to me. But I guess I was part of the people who believed part of the stories about these mummies from Nazca. And the fact that it's so conflated and so confusing is one of the reasons a lot of people didn't pay attention to them. I gotta tell you. Because there are people from the UFO community who back then went to visit Peru, and the story is that they were shown something else that wasn't bodies or anything like that. Some were shown dolls, some were shown ceremonial constructed corpses, which are not. They were constructed from different parts of animals. At least that's what I've been told by molecular biologists who saw the DNA test that Mr. Maussan dropped when he was in Congress and presented the bodies in front of the whole world, which was the major news. And it had just happened when he responded to one of my messages, and we got to talk, and we did the interview. It's in my timeline. I dropped it there. I'm also gonna drop the interview in Spanish that they did publish, and this company published in their website. And the fact is that there's this new interview with Professor Brown from Ohio State University on Roswell Daily Record, which is a publication in Roswell, New Mexico. And it's an interview done by Mr. Toby Martinez from the Roswell Daily Record, and an Argentine researcher, and I don't know, I think he's a journalist too, or his name is Maximo Veron. He's from Argentina. I actually reached out to him and asked him if he supported Boca Juniors or River Plate, but he hasn't responded to me yet. I guess he will after this one, right? This professor, he's been investigating the case, and the claims he makes here, which he calls it's a term called epistemic injustice, which is essentially I think it is a language barrier, but some of the claims made by the people who are saying these mummies are real, they claim it is more like some kind of discrimination. And as a Mexican man and a Mexican journalist who's recently just got into this topic, and I decided to go through the English speaking path because I grew up in Tijuana, I'm bilingual, and well, I speak well in both languages, acceptable at least. And the experience that I've had has been very different to some of the things that they claim. But I guess it has to do with me growing up near the border, you know. And I grew up like consuming all types of zeitgeist, American zeitgeist, I guess. I like rock and roll. I like the blues. Like I love Hollywood. Love movies. That's the reason I reached out to Christian Harloff, and I'm thinking he is one of the reasons he resonated with me so well because we both adore movies. He does it as a career, uh, and this experience, I think that the problem here has to do with a certain reticence we have towards other languages because it doesn't just happen in America or Mexico. You know where else it happens? It happens a lot in countries like Japan, for example, where this language barrier really causes a barrier, and it's more difficult for a lot of people, and I would say the majority from a country, to take more time to try and translate because they don't speak fluently, and that happens. I mean, that's a real thing. I experience it constantly in the space that I'm in, and because I know, for example, if I'm gonna drop a video, if I don't at least have subtitles, it's very obvious that it's not gonna reach anyone, and depending on the audience you have, that's the material you pursue. So that's real. That's a real thing, and I think most of what's happening here, it has to do with that, with the language barrier. Another aspect that also happens is that well, there are theories, right? This doesn't mean that I believe this is happening, but there are theories. There are people who think that there's this group of people who have information that's privileged, and then they have some kind of agenda to tell their story. And there are many stories around the world surrounding the phenomenon. Many. And there are many books. And people who are into ufology, really, truly, they're also into consciousness, they're also into history, they're also into philosophy. They conflate everything because the reality is that it's all connected. And ancient civilizations is part of this too. That's normal. I mean, if you're into ufology and you don't think that, it's kind of weird. If you want to focus only on the nuts and bolts and the secrecy aspect of it and the politics, I think you're doing it the wrong way. That's my opinion. You have to try and learn a little bit of everything because it really is all connected. That's what I believe, and I don't think I'm the only one. And I also believe that if this case has been obstructed in so many ways by the Peruvian government, because it has been, and it has been tampered with in so many ways because it has been. There are many different reports from the people that are investigating this. They're talking about foul play, and even though that needs confirmation, granted, it does, it's a claim that needs to be investigated because it's part of a case that has been so weird the entire time. And yes, there are people who are researchers, who are pros, who I admire, that have been shown things that weren't the bodies. That has been proven by multiple journalists and researchers that are from there, not necessarily people in Mexico, that say that, and report that. And there's Thierry Jamin, there's Jois Mantilla. Those guys are right there all the time. And what Mr. Maussan did is that it brought the awareness, due to his popularity in the world of ufology, it brought awareness of international nature. That's what Maussan is doing, really. And yeah, I mean, if at the end of the day the mummies are not real, people are gonna realize that, but after it is properly investigated, because I don't think it has been. And I think there has been a lot of strange claims surrounding the mummies from other people in ufology who have other agendas. And it's a real shame because I think that all matters in ufology are important to investigate if there is enough evidence to investigate. Currently, the state of this case is that there's a lawsuit going on, and Mr. Maussan last Sunday spoke about this lawsuit and the fact that although it's $300 million, he's still willing to sit down with the Peruvian government and talk about being able to investigate the mummies. I know that he believes they're real. I wouldn't go that far, to be honest with you. I still need to see more evidence. But the fact that he and the people that are investigating this case right there are willing to let other scientific groups study this, I think that's the way that it should be. And this language barrier combined with how murky the case has been, and combined with a lot of people who judge Jaime Maussan, because that is a reality and it is happening, and that also plays a lot into it. And I'm not saying that he did anything wrong, as I told you guys, the background we have. I'm just telling you what's happening, especially in the English speaking community, and investigators and fellow journalists from either the UK, Australia, or the United States, where there are other stories being told about all of this. And I just think that the whole field needs to at least cooperate with each other in order to get to either debunk or prove cases altogether. Like, okay, there's the mummies, let's prove that. Okay, there's the Dyson spheres, let's prove that. Okay, there's you know what I mean. And I don't see that type of union, and I think it needs to happen. And I get that Mr. Maussan and his team are angry because of this. They felt rejection for many years. And I get that they're angry. They don't no longer seem to. They seem to be disappointed. If I'm honest with you, due to the things they've said on their shows and these claims. But I think that this clip from Professor Brown is interesting, and I think it's important for people to realize that this is something they feel or they believe it's happening, And I already gave you my point of view of this language barrier and the other points that I cleared. So with this being said, I don't know if the mummies are real still. I need to see more evidence, but I'm not willing to just dismiss the claims because there's this stigma attached to people in the investigation and attached to the mummies themselves. There's stigma and there's a lot of confusion, and that needs to be cleared. The only way that's going to happen if we work together. That's it. So I'm going to show you Professor Brown's claims. So this clip is from KGRA Digital Broadcasting, Global Radio Live on X. They're from the Roswell Daily Record, as I told you. And who clipped this video is a researcher from New Mexico and a friend, Gonzalo Chavez, who also used subtitles. And Jaime Maussan has already published this clip from Gonzalo. So I want to shout out Gonzalo. You can find him as G Chavez 101 on X, at G Chavez 101. So here's the clip from Gonzalo. This is the editing work from Gonzalo and from Roswell Daily News. Here's the clip.
Happened, right? So like I said, I've said many times now, I believe that the burden of proof for taking these things seriously was met in November 2018 during that hearing in Peru, right? And nobody paid attention to it. Everybody mocked it. Everybody ignored it. So I'm grateful that people keep trying to find new ways of paying attention to the same information, because the same information is correct and not being taken seriously enough. So in many ways, I'm just doing the same thing, right? Like, I'm just saying the same things that Rios Lopez and Salza Benitez and all those characters have been saying since the beginning. I'm not really saying anything new. I'm just saying it in English. And I'm saying it, with a little bit of academic flair, and I have a little bit better graphics, and I'm saying it with an academic position in Ohio. So look, I think so. There's a concept in philosophy called an epistemic injustice, right? Which is when there's a couple of different kinds of epistemic injustices, but one of them is it basically says that people aren't heard because of their place in society, right? And I believe that what we have seen here from the very beginning is a terrible epistemic injustice, right? People like Salsa Benitez and Reyes Lopez and all of these characters, they have been ignored because they're south of the border, because they speak Spanish, because they don't speak English very well, right? That's why they've been ignored. And that's really bad. And I know I'm glad that there are some people here in the United States that are taking it seriously now. I'm glad that that's making a difference in how much people are paying attention to this case. But we need to, the world's complicated, as we said a minute ago, right? Like, we need to feel weird about the fact that nobody took this seriously until Americans got involved and started talking about it in English. That is a stain on us as a society that we didn't listen to these highly qualified professional people who are scientific researchers, medical workers, etc. We didn't listen to them because they're from Mexico, because they're from Peru.
And by the way, I know that I don't have all the information. There's this problem with the lawsuit precisely that some of the bodies that Professor Brown claims are 50 of them, they can't be properly investigated because they can't be taken out of Peru. And I don't think they should be taken out of Peru, to be honest with you. And they're not allowing for people from academia or other scientist groups to come to Peru and investigate them. And they need samples for that. And the case is making it very difficult. That's what I know. What I don't know is a lot of stuff that surely Mr. Mantilla and Jaime Maussan haven't told the people yet. Recently, Mr. Maussan did speak about this, that he would try to release the legal papers that describe the whole case. And as soon as he does, we'll obviously all going to read them and see what this lawsuit is all about. But yeah, okay, so kind of long video. I'm sorry, but I needed to talk about this because I haven't touched the subject for a while. I sometimes talk about it in spaces, but I needed to get these, especially this claim. I think it's important to talk about it, because it is a claim that is not easy to shake off. It's kind of tiptoes in accusations, to be honest with you, and I don't think that making accusations is the way to go, because that's what we've been doing this whole time, and the case still isn't solved. And I think we need to change the strategy. That's what I think. So fighting each other is not going to work. It's proven that it's not working. So, and not being communicative to each other, So that's my video, I guess. Tell me what you think. Not as far as if the mummies are real or not. It's okay to not have an opinion on that. But at least they need to be properly investigated. The whole case. Not just the mummies themselves. The whole case, So thank you for your time. This is the end of the video. And I'll see you guys on the next one.